Hey you, welcome back to Motivation Maven, a sub-show of the Preventative Mental Health Show where I'm focused on motivation and inspiration to help guide you through the week ahead. Yes, it's another Monday, another busy week I'm sure is ahead of you, and well, you got places to go, and let's just dive right in. So I hope you had a good weekend. I know I did. And for me, my weekend consisted of driving to and from my family's home and spending hours in the car. So I'm one of those folks where I can do long distance drives. It doesn't bother me at all, mainly for the fact that I just get a lot done when I'm in the car. And on this particular trip, I focused in on listening to two books I've been meaning to listen to for weeks now. Now, one of them was focused on stress management and the other was focused on time management. Now, you might have been in the same boat that I was. I was really surprised at how many similarities both of these books had. And I don't know why I just assumed that stress management and time management were kind of sitting in their own bubbles and they didn't connect in any way. Well, they absolutely do. And like I said, there was a number of themes throughout both books that really stood out to me, but there was one area in particular that I would like to focus on for this week. And it's this: do the things that you actually want to do and start to say no to things you don't want to do and also to things that you want to do. Now you may be saying, Keisha, you're contradicting yourself. Let me explain. In both books, there was this theme that we are not getting more time in our day. It's just not going to happen. We have 24 hours and that is it. And as much as we act like we don't need sleep, we absolutely do. So that shrinks the amount of time of waking hours that we have each and every day. And they found that if we focus in on things that we actually want to do, but also focus on things that we want to do, that is the most important next steps for us to do. Is really important for us to have less stress and to manage our time best. So what they've identified is that you're going to have a laundry list of things that you may need to do, or folks may want you to do, or you think you need to do. And when you look at that list, you may have to start saying no. And I keep saying that I'm a recovering people pleaser. I like to say yes. I'm really focused on how do I get to yes, how do we get things done. But I also realize when I do that, my balance of what's my priorities is out of whack. So I believe it was in the stress management book. They gave this example. They were saying a therapist was speaking to their client and they said, list all the things in your life that are important to you. And obviously, the client started off with the big rocks, his wife, his kids, but then he goes into his job. They mentioned, what about money? He's like, yep, I like money as well. It helps us fund our lifestyle. And he's going down this list, my health. And then the therapist said, okay, well, what is the one or two things that you cannot live without? And then put them in order of the things that you can't live without to things that you can live without. And what he said, the client, said that he can't live without his wife and kids. But then he also said, I can't live without my health. And to his surprise, work and money were at the bottom of the list. But what was interesting, and again, this is probably not new for any of us here, we tend to spend more time at work to make money than we do in our own homes with the people that we love. But when you put it all down on a sheet of paper and you have to rank the items that you cannot live without, where we spend majority of our time is not necessarily the things that we're not willing to let go of. So when you look at it that way, it makes you really take a step back and think, well, how am I actually living my life? And are my values aligned with what I truly care about? So in one of the books, it says this: when the way you live is not in sync with your values, it will always result in stress. When the way you live is not in sync with your values, it will always result in stress. So putting your time and your energy and your focus in on areas that you don't necessarily care about, it leads to stress. Why? Using that client as the example, all of his time is spent at work. However, what he loves is his wife and his children. So now he feels torn because he's spending less time at home. They also gave an example, and these are not examples that are just profound. Like, these are everyday examples that you can relate to, and or somebody who's in that same exact boat. They gave an example of two business women who were trying to build their businesses, but obviously, again, they're spending a lot of time at work and they're not able to spend as much time with their kids as they want to. So what do? They start to buy their children gifts that are in a way of saying, this is our peace offering. Like, I'm going to give you this in replace of me. So they're buying their kids all the latest toys and gadgets, but then they also find themselves falling in debt. But to combat the debt, they have to put more hours in the office. Do you see the cycle? So what they're doing is they're literally creating this situation where they're on this hamster wheel and they just cannot get off of it. Because if they keep giving their kids the gifts, they have to keep working to pay off the purchases that they just made. So what happens when our values are not aligned with what we actually are doing? It causes stress and it takes us off of our path. We're no longer able to focus in. We're on survival mode, and that leads to stress. So that led me to say, okay, if I had to make a list of the things that I cannot live without, the reality is my list is the same as the example they provided. Can't live without my husband and my kids and my health. Those are my top priorities. But where am I putting my time? And trust me, it's one of those things where it's kind of gut-wrenching because I'm always one of those people like, oh my gosh, I love my job. And I'm really blessed to have good employment. I enjoy the work that I do. It's busy. It can be challenging, but I enjoy it. But do I really love it? I say those words, but who I actually love is my husband and my children. So for you may need to take some time this week, preferably today, since we're at the beginning of the week, and take some time and say, you know what? What are my priorities? And is my time being spent in the areas and with the people that I care about most? And if it's not, the challenge then becomes, well, what changes are you going to have to make so your time can be better aligned? Now, also in the book, which is the time management book, there was a number of questions at the very end that they asked, but there were some that really stood out to me. And the first was, does the decision enlarge me or diminish me? As I mentioned earlier, we have to make the decision as to where we're going to say no. And there may be things that we really love to do. Like, for example, the last week, I enjoy speaking to kids. I do. Anytime that I can speak to students in middle school and high school, I love to challenge them about what their life goals are and where they want to be. And I love to share a little bit of my story with them. However, as much as I love that, it just did not fit in the schedule. And the old me would move heaven and earth to just make it all work. And I would have been stressed out the entire time. But I realized, although I really enjoy that activity, I have to say no. I have to say no. Because where and who I love the most was going to be impacted. You see, on that specific date, I had an appointment for one of my sons. Now, could we have made it to the appointment and then made it to work in time to do this event and volunteer? Maybe. But I knew that if I did all that, I would be stressing the entire time and rushing my son along. And I don't know about you, but 4-year-olds are really hard to rush. They really move at the speed of what they want. And I recognized on that day, I was so relieved that I said no. Because I was able to take the time with my kids. It's not their fault. It's not their time. They only are going to daycare. They have no concept of the time. We made it everywhere we needed to without yelling, without stress, without rushing. all because I said no to something that I really enjoyed. But what the author challenged us here with, does your decisions enlarge me or diminish me? When you are presented with any type of opportunity, and I love when people package things as, this is an opportunity. No, this is some work that I need you to do that I may not be able to find anybody else to do it. That's what it really is. So when people say, well, this is an opportunity, you now have to decide, take that step back and filter it through and make the determination, if I participate in this, is it going to diminish me or is it going to enlarge me? Is it going to help me get to my goals, or is it going to pull me further from my goals and take me off course? And will I be unable to focus on the things that I want to work on? You have to make that decision. No one can tell you. You have to decide, what are you going to say no to so you can better focus in on what's most important. Another one that really stood out to me is, are you holding yourself to impossible standards? I'm going to raise my hand now. I've done that for years, and I've learned to let that go. We want perfection. We can't get that. Aiming for perfection is a trap. What we need to aim for is our personal best. Is what I did my best work? Is it what I could give in this moment? And if it is, then great. If it's not perfect, and it probably isn't going to be, that's okay, because that's the best that you could give in that moment. So recognizing and remembering not to hold ourselves to impossible standards. And this is what really stood out to me. And it made me chuckle. In the book, they said, are you holding yourself to impossible standards? I guarantee you nobody cares. I guarantee you nobody cares. We get so caught up about, oh my gosh, everybody's watching me. Who is watching you? And oftentimes the person who is watching you so closely is not there to cheer you on. They're there to watch you fail. Well, the reality is we don't fail in life. It gets hard sometimes. Absolutely. It gets challenging. Yep, it does. But we don't fail at it because there's no rubric scale that is one size fits all. There's no rubric scale that is one size fits all. It's you, your goals, your life, your timeline, your focuses. That's it. So if somebody's watching and you're so worried about their opinion, well, I challenge you to stop worrying about their opinion, because if they're so busy watching what you're doing, that means they're not watching what they're supposed to be doing. So stay on your course, stay on your path, and don't worry about what's happening on the other side. So that really stood out to me. Who is caring? We get so caught up of, oh, well, they, who is they? And is they living a life that you even want to emulate? If not, don't worry about what they have to say. Don't worry about it. Another one that stood out to me, another question area that was supposed to be really thought-provoking was, how would you spend your days differently if you didn't care so much about seeing your actions through to the finish? There are going to be some things that you are working on that you may never see the end result. I can tell you right now, for me at work, that is all the time. We have all these good idea fairies. We have it like, yes, this is what we're going to do. Y'all, this is like a 3 to 4 year project. I'm not going to be there. When that is done, I will be long gone in another position. But how could you focus and work if you were content with knowing I may not see the end result of this? And that is totally okay. In the season that you're there, do the best that you can and then move on. And I promise you, someone will be able to take up the ball and keep moving that project forward. It is not all about you. Years ago, I read this other book where I believe it's called Nice Girls Still Don't Get the Corner Office. And what stood out to me in that book, there was this one thing. I'm one of those folks that I eat my lunch at my desk. I'm getting better about it. Or I won't eat lunch at all. And they mention that oftentimes we think that skipping our lunch is a badge of honor, when in actuality, what it's telling our bosses and our coworkers is that we have too much work to do and that we can't take on anything more. So when you get upset at work that your other coworker got this project that you really wanted to work on, you can't be mad at it, because the presentation that you're giving outsiders looking in is that you already have too much work to do. So they don't want to give you more work. And in this book, it was the stress management book. They mentioned there was one client who said for 8 years, she never went to lunch. In fact, her coworkers stopped inviting her out because they know that she wasn't going to go. And one day she made the decision that she was going to get up and go to lunch. And she realized nobody said a word. No one noticed. Nothing happened when she left. Nothing fell apart. And no one was paying attention. So for 8 years, she was working through her lunch that was not paid. That was her time that she gifted all those years, stressing herself out, not taking care of herself for an expectation that wasn't real. Now, that was another point that was brought up. We set expectations that we think people have of us instead of just asking what the expectation is. We set these unrealistic expectations without even asking what the expectation is. The expectation was that you're supposed to go on your hour lunch break. No one told you that you were forced to have to sit here. That was a decision that you made. So doing some root cause analysis, what is the reason why you thought you had to sit there throughout your entire lunch when you didn't need to be there? These are, again, I can't answer the question for you. I can give you my personal experiences and my opinions, but you have to make those decisions. What is it that you're holding on to in life that are shoulds and musts that you put the expectation on yourself and no one actually said that was the expectation? This is the last one. In which areas of your life are you holding back until you feel like you know what you're doing? Huge. We get so caught up with, I don't have enough education, I don't have enough experience, I don't have this, I don't have that, and the reality is just start. I promise you. I so enjoy being here with you, talking about these topics, but I don't always get it right. I know some weeks are better than others, but I could be sitting there wallowing and thinking, okay, well, I gotta learn how to do this and I gotta learn how to do that. I just turn on the camera. I turn on the mic, and I'm so thankful that you show up and you listen. But this is my 3rd year having this podcast, having this platform, 3 years. And it's changed drastically, and I'm still trying to find what the right rhythm is. But if I didn't just turn on that microphone and start it, I would have still nothing to show. I have over 200 episodes. I would still have 0. Stop aiming for perfection and just get it done. Get started. Just get started. So I want to leave you with this quote, and I said it earlier, and this is our challenge for this week again. When the way you live your life is not in sync with your values, it will always result in stress. This week, the challenge is list out what your values are. Write out what it is that you're part of and what you're doing. And start to find where they're syncing. Find where they're linking up. And if where you're putting all of your time is not linked up with your values, then it's time to start making some changes. This week. Don't wait till next week. Do it this week. Start to make some changes. What does that look like? It means you might need to pull back from some relationships. It may mean that you might have to put in some resignations for some extra organizations or volunteer work that you may be doing. It may mean that you might have to have some conversations with your bosses because you may be setting those expectations of, I gotta sit here and eat through my lunch and not saying a word, that there's just too much on your plate because you may be that go-to person in the office who just gets things done. If everybody else has time to go to lunch, you deserve to go to lunch too. Only you can determine if you're synced up properly. So that's the challenge this week. Remember, you are worthy of the life that you want to live. Until next time, I'll see you soon. Make sure you sync up your values with what it is that you're doing.